studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Tell me about Horace and Pete. How did you come to this?
Well, I don't know, it's weird. It's like I feel like I found this family in my head somewhere, I don't know. I got interested in doing a show that was like multi-camera, the way a sitcom is shot, but without the audience, without the laugh track, and without the need for the constant jokes, that pumping of jokes that sitcoms have. But because what you're left with is that live feeling. It's kind of like a multi-camera drama or something. Anyway, I kind of got the idea of a show that felt like that.
It is a drama.
I think so, or something. I don't know. It's a show. It's a story.
Yeah.
But
And what's the story?
It's about a family.
Two guys in a bar?
It's about a bar run by a guy named Horace and a guy named Pete. And it's a bar that was opened in 1916 in Brooklyn by two brothers, Horace and Pete. And they each had a son, one named Horace, one named Pete, and they handed it to their sons, Horace and Pete. And so the idea is that this bar has been run always by the same family, always owned in the family by a Horace and a Pete. Sometimes they've been brothers, sometimes they've been cousins, but it's always been one of each. It's like a lineage. It's a weird kind of a royalty thing. So it's got me and Steve Buscemi play the current Horace and Pete.
Yeah.
Alan Alda plays Uncle Pete, who's like from the previous generation.
It's a new form for you too, isn't it?
Yeah, very different from other things I've done before.
Why this? Why this?
It just grabbed me. I just believed in it. As soon as I started writing it, to me, I've had a lot of ideas for different kinds of shows, but there's this test is, does it right? Like, can you actually get out the scripts? And I started writing it this summer, and it just kept coming, episode after episode, and I realized I'm writing something that is worth shooting. So I started to get it under works producing it.
And what about the actors? When you called up Alan Alda and Steve Buscemi and others?
Well, Steve Buscemi called me to do a benefit for a firefighter thing that he
and
does.
You said, I'll do your benefit, but by the way.
Yeah, I happened to be writing it. I wasn't sure where it was going yet, and I had him on the phone. We're chatting, we're friends. And I said, hey, do you want to do a show? A lot of things are timing in show business, because he had just come off of Boardwalk Empire.
Right.
If I'd come up with this idea a year before, it wouldn't have existed. But he had just come off of this big show, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, nothing, I'm looking for stuff to do. And I said, do you want to do a series with me? And he said, yeah, sure. And I said, we'll play brothers. And he goes, yeah, okay. So then once I got that in my head, where are the two brothers, I started writing. And then I saw an article about Edie Falco and saying that she's done with Nurse Jackie.
He said, boom.
She's one of my favorites. So I wrote her into it. And then I was at the Emmys, and she was sitting with nobody next to her. So I just sat next to her and said, I wrote a part for you in my new show. And she said, okay. So she read it, and she wanted it. The writing is what attracts the people. If you don't write in a way that interests them, then they won't be in it.
Alan Alda?
And then Alan, actually, he asked me for the part, because I wrote his part for Joe Pesci, who declined it. And then I was looking for somebody, and Alan's agent suggested him. And I thought, I don't think he's the right part for it. And she smartly said, you should get somebody who you wouldn't expect to do it. And so Alan really wanted the part, and he's great. Oh, wow. So I thought, he'll figure it out. So that was a faith move, like, you know, Alan Alda will find a way to make this work.
So you didn't roll this out with a lot of fanfare?
No fanfare. Yeah, the opposite. I made it a secret. Yes. Yeah.
Why that?
Because I found that really interesting, the idea of the way shows are presented to the audience. They tell you as much as possible ahead of time.
Right.
Because they just want to get you to look at it. They don't care how it...
And by looking at it, you assimilate information about it.
Yeah, and they want you to see how it feels and the way that who's in it and what it sounds like. They want to show you as much as they can so that if it's the kind of thing you like, you'll take a look. But to me, that feels backwards. In other words, it's like tasting something before you eat it. You know, it's like you want to discover a thing and go, I don't know what this is.
So you want what? You want
I want them to know nothing and have no thoughts and no idea. They just know there's something new.
Just jump in the river.
Yeah, just start watching. And you should be a little disturbed when you start watching, like, I don't know what this is. Right. You should have this tension of, like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then when it's all done, you go, wow, that was really great.
And I'll come back for the next episode.
Yeah, and then when it's all done with all 10 of them, you go, well, I'm really glad I watched it. I mean, after the first episode, you shouldn't think that was great. You should think, I want to keep watching. I don't understand what I'm watching yet. That's what I want them to feel. And then after 2 episodes, I want them to feel like, I still don't understand what I'm watching, but I'm curious. And then after the 3rd episode, I think, on my show, specifically this show, you go, okay, I really like this, now I want to be watching it. And then when you get to 10, you go, wow. You should say wow. But the thing is that the TV company, because TV costs so much money to make, they need you. They want you to say wow, I want to see that before you see it. See, again, I think it's backwards. You should start with nothing and get to wow.
And how do they pay for it?
Yeah, they have. I mean, in order they have to pay for it through an intent to watch. That's what they call that. They track the show. There's an intent to watch, or they hire people to be in the show that they think will.
I have a sense that you want to own stuff you do.
Oh, yeah, only because then I can do it. Then I don't have to, when you ask somebody to fund something, you're asking them to take a risk with you. I knew that Horace and Pete was going to be such a strange road, and I would do things so counterintuitively. I didn't want to convince other people. I didn't want to risk someone else's money. I didn't think that was right. I didn't want to go tell someone this is going to be a success, and then take it down a road where it
were
wouldn't
you
be.
convinced it would be a success?
Yeah, and I still am. I think
because
it'll
you
be.
said it's the best thing you've ever done.
It's my favorite thing that I've done. Yeah.
Favorite thing you've ever done.
Yeah. I think it's the best work I've done. Yeah, I think so.
But did you believe it'd be a success?
I didn't know either way. I didn't think of it that way.
Or do you care?
Yeah, I'd like people to see it. I'd like tons of people to see it. I would. And also, I'd like to be able to do a show like this again. So if we can kind of train the audience into this notion.
What makes it unique? You could only get it through your website.
That's right. Yeah. You have to go to my website and buy it and download it.
Are you creating a whole new
stream
model
it.
of people to deliver entertainment?
I don't know. I think, I don't know if it will work for other people. I know how to make TV from nothing.
Right.
I know how to do all of it and then distribute it.
And how do you know?
Well, I know how to produce television.
Right.
I know how to create, I have a company. Obviously, it's not just me. I have people that work with me, but I know how to direct and write and produce and edit. I know how to put the thing out. And then how to make my website was really created to sell tickets to my shows and stand-up specials that I did.
But that's other part of you wanting to own stuff and you liking to be in charge of the way you do things. You've cut out the middleman.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want him to deal with you.
Yeah, I like that part. I like that
I do
part.
too.
Yeah, it's fun.
But it's controlled and it also, it's direct.
Yeah, it's a very
one-to-one
personal
thing.
relationship. Yeah, and I think the one thing people liked about, one of the things they liked about Horace and Pete was that they got an email from me that I sent to them saying the next episode is ready. And then they went to my website. It was very bespoke, Then they went on my website and they watched it. There was nothing else going on. And then they paid me money for their episode, their bit of money for each episode. And then I went and made more.
So you've self-financed this too?
Yeah, I paid for everything, yeah. Well, what's money for? I mean, that's what
to
money's
spend
for.
on things you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's more, to me, it's more interesting to do that than to have it stored up somewhere, sitting in accruing interest. I could be dead tomorrow,
Exactly. And if you need money for any reason, you can go out and do stand-up.
I can go on the road.
Tonight.
So far, some that you can always get checkmated. You always have to know that at some point, one or two things could go wrong and suddenly you're really screwed.
Yes, it's back to whatever you do.
Yeah, but everybody lives that way.
When you created this, what's the creation process for you? I mean, you decided that this bar,
Yeah.
and you love the idea and the drama.
So I thought about a family, and they own a place together, which means people work and live in the same place. I mean, in other words, you live with people, and then you work with them, and then you can't escape them, which is what family feels like. Family is something you can't escape.
But this
it's a relationship you can't get out of.
This is not Cheers.
No, not at all. Not even close.
I know.
It looks like it if you have the sound off
Yeah.
for 2 minutes, and then even with the sound off, you'd be like, geez, that's not Cheers at all. It's very, it gets very down. It is funny in moments. It's very surprising and startling in moments. So the creative process is like you create the people and the world, and then you see if it writes. If you can sit down and write. And it just flowed. I believed in the people. They felt real to me. So I
does it just
I
pour
told their
out?
story.
I mean, when you start episode by episode, it just pours out.
Yeah, and some things come out that way, and this one did too. Every episode I would sit down and I would just be writing, and I put the people in the rooms in my head, and I have them talk to each other, and it's like I'm hearing it, and I'm quickly copying it down like a stenographer. Or a court reporter. Is that what a court person is?
Yeah, right. That's
what it feels like. And then when it's over, I stop and I go, oh my God, that was crazy. And then I read it and I'm going, that's pretty good. And then I've got one done.
Okay, but how much editing do you do? I mean, is it pretty much a stream of consciousness when you do it, or do you simply hammer it and like
a few different things?
Like
okay,
sculpting?
A lot of that happens ahead of time. Like that's when I get an episode written. When I sit down and write it, before I write it, I walk around driving myself crazy thinking about it. I do all the carving up here, and I know what's going to happen. I think about what it means in each interaction and what direction it's going to go. And I think about all that for a long time. It's like being pregnant. And then finally I just regurgitate it onto the page. And after that, maybe right before we shoot, I would, like, we do a rehearsal for a whole day. We rehearse the show over and over again. And then I'll look at it and go, maybe there's a few things that could change. I usually keep the dialogue all the same. There's an integrity to that, like how you first wrote it. But I might cut and I might add things. But I don't change the little lines inside. I think that feels like tampering.
How is it different than writing stand-up?
Well, stand-up, I don't sit down and write it. I just go on stage and...
Well, no, but you have to think about what you're going to say.
Yes, but I just write like a one word and a piece of paper about the subject I want to, just to remind myself that there's an idea there. But I work it out on, it's a spoken word.
Yeah.
It's so it's better not to prepare with stand-up. It's better to let the first audience that you tell the story to, they pull it out of you by the way they listen. And
So you listen to them and you may add to it. And
yeah, they'll tell you how interesting it is.
And is that what you're doing now, working on another stand-up routine?
Yeah.
And these small clubs teach you, or inform
What's
you as to
working and what
what's
isn't.
working is not.
That's right.
You know, and do you find a lot of stuff you think might work doesn't work?
Yeah, but you keep trying it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you try with a different audience,
That's
or you
right.
add and polish.
Yeah, you
and-
gotta have you gotta know a little more than them. If you're just showing them what they want to see, there's something very satisfying and boring about
Yeah.
that. An audience that will come and see you again and again is because you really surprise them. If you make people like something they didn't expect to like, to me that's good. That's real gold.
That's a great goal.
That's what you want. Yeah.
Have them like something they didn't expect
They
to like.
never thought they'd like. Have them go, that's so great, and I never would have expected that to
Yeah.
be something I'd like.
Okay. Tell me about the episode 7, I think it was, about a transgender
Yeah.
dialogue. I mean, the dialogue is fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you know, you wrote it.
Yeah. Well.
Tell me about
Well, that.
any reason not to tell me?
No, I'm just trying to think of what to say about it. When I wrote that, I didn't expect that to happen in that story. To me, that story was about it was about Horace confesses something to her first.
Right.
About his life, something very shocking.
Right.
And to me, that's what that scene was about. Initially, that's why I wrote the scene, was that
Horace confesses to this girl.
because they have a one-night stand.
Right.
So they have an immediate intimacy, and then the next morning they don't want to look at each other, which is how people sometimes feel in the morning.
Right, yes.
But he invites her to some eggs. Sit down and have some eggs before you. And she says, "I don't want to be here," and he says, "I don't want you here." So they have they're safe with each other because they both know that they don't want anything. They don't want to see each other again.
Right.
So now
So
they're
therefore they
eating-
can be more truthful.
That's what it is. More truthful than they are with someone that they have a future with.
Right.
So she asks Horace about his life, and he has a very shocking detail about his life. And he just goes ahead and tells her, because it was easy to tell her. And to me, that's what I sat down to write.
Yeah.
And then I had her tell a joke. He says, I mean, you're not going to be able to air this, but he says, you have a nice pussy. And she says, yeah, I put it in myself where my d used to be. And I just have her tell that joke. Now, you're not going to be able to use that, but she makes
Don't worry about it.
She makes this joke, and he laughs, and then I felt like I was in the room with him, and I felt like,
Yeah.
what if she's not kidding? What if she's kidding, but she wants to toy with him more on the subject? And then I just started to trade lines down this road. That he finds himself in this situation, and then she's interested in talking about this.
And he wants to know who has he slept with.
Did he sleep with someone who used to be a man? And she says, well, if I was transgender, wouldn't that mean I am a woman?
Yeah.
Aren't we all saying that when someone becomes transgender, I'm told 50-50 by people which one you're supposed to say,
Right.
that's a woman. Caitlyn Jenner is a woman now.
Right.
With all the rights of a woman and the yes and hooray, she's a woman. And it's not polite to say that's Bruce Jenner in a dress or Bruce Jenner who got an
It's Caitlyn
operation.
Jenner.
That's
A
Caitlyn
woman.
Jenner, a woman. So if Caitlyn Jenner sleeps with a man, does she have to tell him I used to be Bruce Jenner? I think that's a really interesting, unresolved, for the average person who doesn't think about this kind of stuff all the time, which is what Horace is.
Yeah.
In the show, that's who I'm playing, a
Right.
guy who's just got a myopic view. That's a really uncharted wilderness.
Yeah.
So I put him in that wilderness with somebody who had a little bit more, although I don't know in the end. I don't know if she's transgender or not, the character. I still don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Horace doesn't know.